All right, this is Brian Courtois with Pine Tree Search and Rescue. I'm going to talk a little bit about this Garmin 64ST, and today we're going to talk about waypoints. What you can see right here, this is my list of waypoints that are already set in here. One of the things that I'll see is on my list of waypoints is underneath each waypoint is a distance and bearing from where I currently am to these waypoints. To get to this waypoint list, we're just going to push menu, and we'll see waypoint manager. You can navigate over to waypoint manager, push enter. That brings up the list. Once this list is up, you have the option to push menu, and then you can sort the list so that the closest ones are nearest to you, or you can sort the list alphabetically or however you want to sort the list. So first of all, you need to create a waypoint. The easiest way to create a waypoint is just physically go there, and then you're going to push your mark button. So I'm just going to push the mark button, and that's going to bring up this screen. So from this screen, you can change a bunch of information. I'm going to arrow up to the very top, and I'm going to push enter. And now it brings up this numeric keypad, and now I can name my waypoint. I would encourage you to take the time and name your waypoint something meaningful. That way you can identify it. In this case, I'm just calling it ABC. And once you're done, you've got to scroll down to the bottom and hit done and hit enter. And so now that name is saved. So now that waypoint, and one last thing you need to do is make sure you go all the way down to the bottom and select done again. So now that waypoint is saved, and I can see it right here at the top of my list, ABC, and I can go from there. So that's one way of creating the waypoint. Another way of creating a waypoint is, let's say somebody gives you a set of coordinates. Say they found the missing person and they need you to go in to them. So it's a very similar process. We're going to start by pushing the mark button. We're going to have the option to go up to the very top, and we can give it a name. I'm just going to call it 1, 2, 3 for right now. But I do encourage you to take the time and give it a meaningful name. I'm going to say done, so it remembers that name. And now I can go down to this field right here, which is the location, and if I hit enter on that screen, I now have the cursor over the north, and I can go over to use the, so down at the very bottom here, you've got an arrow key. So right now I'm on the right arrow key right there, and if I push enter, it'll scroll the numbers across. You can get on the number you need to change. You can go down here and enter the correct value, and then once you're all done, you go down to the bottom and push done. If you just keep scrolling to the right, keep pushing enter, 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 it'll wrap around to the west. You can enter those numbers, and then when you're completely finished, I'm going to say done, and then you got to go way down to the bottom again and say done one more time. So now that saved that waypoint as the new position. The third way is to pan the map around. So I'm going to go to my map screen. I'm going to hit page until I see my map. And so by using this rocker, I can move the cursor. So right now what I'm seeing is the blue triangle. That's where I physically am. And if I move the rocker, then I get a white arrow. So one of the things that you'll see is at the very top of the screen, as I move this arrow around, you'll see the numbers change. So what that's giving me is it's giving me a lat long of where the pointer is, and it's also giving me a distance and bearing from where I am to where the pointer is. So if it's just something really simple that you just you're on a trail and you want to see where the road is, and you run the arrow up and you put it on the road, then right now you've got a bearing and distance to wherever that arrow is. If you want to actually create a waypoint, then what we're going to do is you're going to put the arrow right where you want, window in or out, depending on what you're doing and how accurate you need to be. Say I want to put a waypoint right there at the end of that road. So I'm going to put my cursor right there on the end of the road, and I'm going to hit enter. Now it just created that waypoint. If there's something there, it'll name it. In this case, it called it Stone Street because that was the end of the name of the street. And now I have the option to go. I also can push menu, and I have an option to save it as a waypoint. So what it didn't do is it did not create a waypoint. So I want to save it as a waypoint. I can hit enter, and now it says the location was saved as a waypoint. It didn't really give me an option to name it. It just arbitrarily named it, but I can see that it called it Stone Street, and if I want to change it, I can go back in and change it. So if I hit quit and go menu, I can go to my waypoint manager. I can find the name that it called it. I can then hit enter. I can go up to the top and rename it or whatever else I want to do to it. So those are the three basic ways of creating a waypoint. Now, one thing that will not let you do, I'm going to hit quit, is it will not let you overwrite a waypoint. So I like to have a waypoint wherever I park my truck. So I usually have a waypoint in here called truck. So if I go someplace else, I don't want to necessarily have to delete the waypoint and then create a new one. There's another way I can do that. So if I go to my waypoint manager and I go down and I find my truck, I can hit enter. So now it's selected. And if I push menu, I have an option to delete, but if I go way down to the bottom, I have an option that says reposition here. What that's going to do is it's going to move the waypoint from wherever it was to where I'm physically standing. So reposition here. So now it's just moved the waypoint to where I physically am. And that's pretty much it for the Garmin 64 ST basic overview of waypoints and how we're going to use them. So one last thing, once they're in here and we want to navigate to one, and then hit quit. So what we would do is we would go through our list, we'd find the waypoint we want, and we'd hit enter. So that waypoint's now selected, and I've got an option down at the bottom that says go. I'm going to hit enter, and now I'm navigating. So I'll see a purple line from wherever I am going to the thing I'm trying to get to. Also, if I go to my compass page, I'll see an arrow giving me a direction, but more importantly, up here I have a bearing and a distance to destination. So then I'm going to get out my compass. I'm going to set it to this bearing because this is a magnetic bearing. You can see the letter M there. That represents it's a magnetic bearing. And I'm going to get my compass out, set it to that bearing, start walking, and put my GPS away and pretty much navigate with just the compass until I'm getting close, and then I can get the GPS out. Maybe get a new bearing and distance if I drifted off my course a little bit. And then lastly, to stop navigating, in order to stop navigating, we're going to push find. And we push find. We're going to have an option that says stop navigation. Push enter. So now there's no more compass here. There's no bearing and distance. And if I look at my map, there's no purple line running from where I am off into space. And that's how we do waypoints.